other woodpeckers do, they're usually flaking bark. And so one of the ways that I'll find them is by sometimes you'll see pieces of bark becoming, tumbling down from the sky. And if you turn around and you look at the white stripe, the tree with the white stripe, look up on that tree with your binoculars. Can you see all the sap that's coming down that tree?
I can see it.
That is a red cockaded nesting cavity. And there's a place right there, over here, way down there, that white stripe down there, and you can see that there is a place where there's some bark that's been peeled off, and there's a hole there. So that's the nesting cavity.
There's multiple holes.
Yeah, but the one where they have the bark peeled around it is the one that they use for nesting. And so the red cockaded woodpecker has a real challenge, since it's the only bird that builds a nest cavity in a live tree. It takes several years to accomplish that. And so they live in family groups. And we got Heather with us as well. That's great.
I'm not sure I understand where the nest is. Where the nest would be.
Okay. Do you see the tree with the white stripe and the black burn area?
Yeah.
Okay. You see all the sap. There is a place on the right-hand, is the white sap. The black is smut at the bottom. Do you see the white sap up on the tree up a ways? And there's a place on the right-hand side of the tree where the bark has been peeled off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it looks a different color.
Yeah.
Well, right there where the bark's been peeled off, that's where the cavity is. That's where the hole is. And actually, if you start looking around over there, there's another one that has a stripe on it. And the bark's, you see the sap up on that one. And then right here, this tree right here has white stripe, and it has some sap that's dried. And you see this around, so you started saying, wait a minute, there's these trees with these white marks. Are these all different pairs? The answer is no. This is one breeding pair. And what happens is that they start a cavity, but it takes several years for them to construct it. So once they construct one, eventually they'll use that, but they may start the next one. And as the sap starts drying out, they will then turn around and other birds may take over. So they're very difficult to survey. Hey, we're glad to see you here. Is that they're very difficult to survey because you have to come in and you have to actually watch the birds at daybreak to see where they're going. One of the fascinating things about it is that this is a group that has helpers at the nest. So that because it is so hard to make one of these cavities, that it's sort of like trying to get a nice apartment in Manhattan. It tends to pass down from generation to generation. So what occurs is that the pair, as they raise the young, another individual from another immature bird, a young adult who doesn't have a nest yet, will go help a pair raise their young. And when no, another red cockaded woodpecker. Good question. Another red cockaded woodpecker will come and be a helper at the nest, is what they call it. When they raise their young, then what happens is that the males, and it depends upon the species of birds, but in the case of red cockaded woodpeckers, the males are allowed to stay and the females are required to disperse. So in other words, to prevent inbreeding. So the females are the ones that are said, see ya, go find a new place. We think that very unusual, being from a male human perspective. But so then they will go out, and so what will happen is you'll end up with three, four, sometimes even 5 birds that are in a colony. But there's only one breeding male and female. And the others are basically half-heartedly helping, but they're basically waiting for one of them to die. All right, the adults, so they can take over. And so because they're in these colonial groups, they move around as a flock and feed as a flock. So they're always chattering. So with that call that I played for you is what you hear when they're out foraging, kind of keeping up where each other is. Okay, so this is what I said before. But they're not going to be near the nest because this is where they feed the most. They have squip.
So they're not going to be near the nest unless they're nesting?
Or they come in every night to sleep.
But you said they have multiple nests, though?
Well, the multiple cavities. So see how this right
So they can pick whichever one they want before they go to sleep?
Yeah. So different individuals may be roosting in different holes.
So there's the multiple ones are not up and down that tree that we're pointing at.
Probably the other holes are probably not even used because they don't have the strip off. That's where they may have worked on it. But those don't look like they're used by the red cockaded. Whereas when you look at the ones over there, it's where the bark's peeled off.
Right.
That they'll be using it. Okay.
So the other ones would be they're in process of creating it.
It can be in the process, or another kind of woodpecker could have worked it, or that's a knot. It's not a full cavity. So when it's sort of stuck in, that's where a branch was that broke off, and so they've worked it, but they haven't made a full-fledged cavity out of it.
One hole better than the other for them?
Well, one of the things we know is one of the things we should be asking about is how do they create that? They drill into the tree, and then that makes it what we call a sap well. And so obviously that sappy area seems to do something. Around here, the two common nest predators are rat snakes, and what's the other one?
The rat snake or
flying squirrels.
Flying squirrels?
Oh,
really?
Yes, flying squirrels are a major cavity nest. They love to eat bird eggs and baby birds. So do gray squirrels.
They're carnivores.
Yeah, gray squirrels are carnivores too. And so those little sweet faces, don't let them discuss.
No, they bark.
And so what they do is that, well, there's a guy that studied these for a long time, and one of the things that he observed was that one time he found a mummified flying squirrel stuck to the side of one of those trees next to a red cockaded habitat. And we know that rat snakes do not like getting that resin on their scoots, okay? So that makes a great defense mechanism. After they've worked a tree for a while, that sap kind of starts drying out, and they'll get chased off by a red-headed woodpecker. Some other species will often take over the holes. So they need the ones that have lots of really sticky sap there. Seem to be the ones that they do as well. And it's great to watch them come flying in because they can come flying in and land on that and just hit the cavity, right? Bam, like that, and then go straight in.
How deep is that cavity?
I'll show you when we go back. There's one on the front porch of the where we stay at Webb, okay? So I'll show you right there. But the other thing that they have to do is that they were very common in southern pines and then started disappearing because they have to have it wide open. So if you stop burning right here and all the little oaks and all grow up in front of the hole of the cavity, they won't use that cavity. The other thing is that which trees can they nest in? Well, these are long. A lot of these are long leaf. Some of these actually here are short leaf as well. But that's very hard to drill a cavity out of a live tree. And what they do, particularly the heartwood, so the tree has to get old enough for it to get red heart fungus, which softens the heartwood, which means these trees have to be about 100 years. The long leaves are about 100 years old. What are the dates?
Yep.
And the short leaf and loblolly are like 80 to 90. Aren't they a little younger? I think?
Maybe as young as 60 for loblolly and probably 80 to 90 for short leaf.
So the point is that if you're trying to raise pulp timber and you're cutting it at an age of 30 years or 40 years, then what's going to happen to red cockaded habitat? It disappears. So the red cockaded woodpecker is basically our spotted owl. It is a species that is only found in very old growth pine forests that are maintained by fire. And one of the things that we'll be talking about, so there's three things I want you to come away with from this stop right here. One is why are red cockaded woodpeckers so rare? What unique habitats? Because it is a wonderful illustration to say why are some species endangered. There are no recipes out there for red cockaded woodpecker stew. All right, it's not something that they're hunting. So what makes them rare? Well, when they have very specific habitat requirements. And the thing that's interesting is looking at that map, 200 years ago, would a red cockaded woodpecker have been rare? Or 300 years ago? No, it would have been one of the more common woodpeckers you encountered. So the bird is the indicator for the habitat. So that's rule number one. I mean, takeaway message number one. And I'm going to do something right here. Now, I told you to compare that with the Bachman sparrow. Bachman sparrow is a grassland bird that nests on the ground. And it has a wonderful song, and I want you to hold real still. I don't think they'll come, but sometimes, even though we don't know what they do in the winter, but sometimes they can